glance at the person next to you and said, "Welcome to the first strategic forum." Yes. Okay, great. So may I ask everyone to please stand? Let's pray and dedicate this to the Lord. Okay. In the name of the Father, the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Father God, we thank you for today. We thank you for a beautiful Sunday. We thank you for each person who has come to discuss what is going on in the world and how we can improve, how it affects us here locally, and what we can do to secure our future and to help make sure that everyone in the community will be okay. Father, we lift up to you the speakers, the discussion. May you give us wisdom, heavenly wisdom, Lord, to move forward. Thank you. In the name of the Father, the Son, and of the Holy Spirit, in Jesus' name, amen. Amen. Thank you. All right. May I call on Sir Mario for our opening remarks?
Thank you, God. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us to this first event, and I sincerely believe that this is what our people need. No? 3 weeks ago, I was in Manila, and ramdam ko na yung panic mode ng mga tao doon. No? Although there was a big advantage. I went around Quezon City, Pasig, I was also in Malabon, and sa Pasay, walang traffic. Sabi ko, ba't walang traffic? Nagtaka ako, no? But then, napadaan ako sa LRT tsaka sa MRT, nakita ko yung pila ng mga tao nandun. So, then that's when I realized that the impact of saving because of the high cost of fuel, ramdam na sa Manila, no? But when I came back here, ay ko, bakit parang walang malay mga tao rito na may crisis na, no? Na tumaas ang presyo. Everybody was still smiling. Even up to now, I think everybody's still smiling. Doesn't seem to, no? Even my wife, no? Sabi ko, sa Manila, nagpa-panic buying na eh. Dito, wala naman. Okay lang naman eh, na regular shopping, etc., no? So, but I think with this crisis, ultimately, as we can see, prices of gasoline has really risen up, no? More than 121 pesos per liter. All right? In fact, the gasoline that I signed for Naga College, kasi sign sheet kami dyan sa gasoline station, dati it just used to run about 100,000 a month. No, nung last pirma ko, bakit na doble na yata ito, no? And then, yun nga, because of the things. But people are still going about the usual thing, no? Normal pa rin. Kahit nagpa-implement ako na, pwede ba magbawas na tayo ng aircon, etc. But people still seems to be looking at things normally, no? Bukas pa rin dalawang aircon, dalawang ilaw. Ko, ano ba to? Mga matatanda lang yata ang tinatamaan ng ano nito. The youth seems not to understand. In fact, yesterday, we had more than 100,000 participants or goers dun sa Tanog Banda, and also the Carless Day yesterday, no, which was in front of the Naga College Street, doon sa MT Villanueva Avenue. But I believe that sooner or later this will hit us, not just the businessmen, but even the ordinary people, and that's where we are. No, we would like the decision makers, the businessmen to really realize how are we going to mitigate this such that dito sa probinsya, wag mangyari yung nangyari sa Manila, no, na nagpa-panic buying. Kasi dito I realized na because of our religiosity, no, we believe in our faith na hindi tayo pababayaan ni God eh, diba? Dito ganun na eh. Alright? And I would like to thank our two main speakers for this. Si Ken, thank you for such short notice, di ba? Kasi talagang short notice lang ito. When we said, done, let's do this before the Holy Week. And then, of course, si Ma'am Cora, thank you again, no? That you are our two main speakers. And of course, si Sir Ernie. Saan si Sir Ernie? Ayan. Right? Although I'm sure that Ernie will bring this forum in a lively situation. No? Wag na yung AI ni Sir Ernie. Kasi the other day, we hosted the second Artificial Intelligence EduTech Summit. And siya daw, even as early nung high school youth niya, he was already using AI. Diba? Yung AI niya pala was artificial intelligence. Ay, artificial insemination. So, guys, thank you so much. And by the way, this is going to be recorded live through Facebook page ng GNN. And after this, my boss in Manila, the GNN network, no, the Global News Network, they would like to air this also all over the Philippines. Baka sakali din naman may matulungan tayo in some other areas. So again, welcome and thank you for your being here.
May we now call on Sir Dan De Leon to give an overview of the forum. Sir Dan.
When I was tasked with the overview, alam ko yung staff nag-prepare na nung mga signage. Your time is up, 5 minutes to go. Kasi when I hold the microphone, I usually speak not less than 1 hour. But I will, see, kita nyo? But I will break my rule today. Okay, alam mo, may kasabihan, you can classify people into 3 classes. The first group are those who just watch things happen. Either wala silang pakialam or basta dumadaan lang. The second group, yung nanonood, they watch things happen, pero they talk, they criticize, pero walang ginagawa. But the third group, yun ang dapat bantayan natin. These are the people who watch things happen and they do something. I would like to believe na yung mga tao natin nandito ngayon belongs to the third group. Tayo yung hindi nakukontentong manood lang. Tayo yung mga taong gustong may mangyari sa buhay natin at sa mundo. Kaya on that note, pwede bang i-handshake mo yung tao sa kanan mo, sabihin mo, you are in the right place. And to your left, on or right kanina, ngayon naman left. Sabihin mo naman, you are with the right people. Yeah. Okay. So yun, natapos ko yun less than 5 minutes. Now let me go for an overview, which I will try to finish less than 3 minutes. So, why are we here? Ang linaw-linaw po, nakakagulo sa Middle East. Ang akala natin, doon lang ang gulo. Pero pag tinignan po ninyo ang effect nitong nangyayari sa Iran, US, and Israel, the effect is global. Oras po nung sinarado nila yung Hormuz Strait, naapektuhan ho tayo lahat. Ang expectation ng mga gumagawa ng senaryo sa AIM is that this will be worse than the COVID-19. Kasi yung COVID-19, madali tayo naka-recover. But this one, pag nag-hyperinflation, grabe po ang effect. And it would take years for us to recover. So, yun po ang reason. Gusto natin pag-aralan, ano talaga ang pangyayari. Kaya, ano po yung gagawin natin ngayon? Ano yung mga objectives natin? Puputulin ko rin yun, hindi ko na iisa-isahin, and you will see it in action rather than sasabihin ko. Number 2. Ito po yung key themes in focus areas. Pinili po talaga natin itong speakers at pinili din po natin yung mga reactors. This is not for everybody, but this is only for the decision makers and those who will make a difference after this. Kaya ang ending po nitong forum is action agenda. After talking, what? Sanay na ho tayo mag-attend ng ano-anong conferences, pagkatapos wala na, talk-talk lang. Pero dito, kung makita nyo ang demographics na inimbita natin, these are the people who makes things happen. So, geopolitical shifts and strategic implications. Pag in-introduce ko na po sa inyo si Ernie, Cecilia, you will understand why he is not only credible, but he is well-versed on this topic. Pero uunahan ko, he has been the president of PMAC before. He is with the American Chamber of Commerce and Industry, and he is a writer of the Manila Times. Hindi ko nababasahin ang mga academic qualifications niyan, baka abutin tayong alas 5. Pero ang importante yo, Bicolano yan. Uragon. Okay. Then, economic resilience and local impact pathways. Ang magsasalita po niyan, isang napakagaling na young technocrat. Babasahin ko yung parte lang ng kanyang announcing po the arrival of the President of UNEP, my good friend, Attorney Pichi Moraleda. Marami pa magdadating. Economic resilience and local impact pathways. Pag binasa ko na po ang bio notes nitong speaker dito, you will understand that he can adequately cover the topic. Inimbita rin ho namin ang aming champion sa AIM alumni, si Cora. Dati po siyang General Manager ng Metropolitan Manila Development Authority. So alam niya po ang nagiging effect sa mga tao ng mga pangyayaring ganito. Kasi talaga ang kanyang experience at exposure. So, ito po ang ating mga tema. Okay. Ito po yung event flow. Bakit sinabi namin kaya namin itong tapusin half day? We have 2 keynote presentations, kay Ken, then kay Ernie, then we will also get insights from Cora. Then we will have moderated discussions and open forum. Kung makita nyo, 3 kayong clusters. We have the academe, kaya 2 presidente ng universities ang nandito, 3 ang nandito. Then we have the industry, nandito po ang Camarines Sur Chamber of Commerce and Industry, most outstanding chamber ng entire South Luzon and the Philippines, Camarines Sur Chamber. Nandito rin po ang Metro Naga Chamber of Commerce and Industry. So, industry is represented. Nandito rin po yung mga tao. Nandiyan po ang masipag at magaling kong kasama, Vice Chairman of the Naga City People's Council, si Engineer Abe over there. 2 po silang darating from NCPC. And after that, pagkasalita po, isi-synthesize natin, then we will have the call to action. What are we going to do? Pagkatapos yan, lahat na nandito, sasama namin sa group chat, sisiguruhin namin na malalaman ninyo kung ano ang gagawin nating susunod. This is not only pure talk. Gagawa tayo ng aksyon. And last but not the least, what is important, papadalaw namin sa inyo ang directory ng lahat na pumunta rito, lahat na inimbita namin dito, para you can do networking. I think that is most important. Nag-attend tayo ng mga convention seminars, but we don't network with the other participants. We don't network with the speakers. This time, we will change it. We will make a difference. So on that note, Cats, I broke my record. I finished it in 6 minutes in 18 seconds. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sir Dan. This one is for the history books. Okay, So next, we will have our keynote speaker, Sir Ernie. Take it away.
So, i-introduce ko na isa-isa. Introduce ko muna. Okay na yun. Oh, Ernie, introduce mo muna kita bago ka magsalit.
Sige.
Okay. Alam mo kasi si Ernie, kung magbigay yan ng biodata, 19 pages. Okay, tingnan mo ngayon, pinaikli namin. Pero ang babasahin ko, first paragraph lang. Okay. Oh, Ernie, 50 years of solid experience in training in human resource. 50. Alam nyo na gano'n kabata itong kaibigan ko ito.
Started 15.
Yeah, started at 50. Siya po yung Executive Director ng People Management Association of the Philippines.
Dati.
2013. And of course, siya din ang head ng mga training and development ng American Chamber. And he is yung pong talagang binabasa, columnist ng Manila Times. And as of now, nagtuturo po siya sa University of Asia Pacific. And he took his BS in Business Administration, UE, and Human Resource Executive Program at the University of Michigan, and Economic Development Program at the ILO in Turin, Italy. Makang nagkita po sila ni Rudy over there, OSB ng ILO expert. So ito po ang ating first speaker on this forum. Pero pag tinanong raw siya kung ano lang one word na gusto niyang ma-remember siya, Urago na Bicolano. That's Ernie, Cecilia.
Thank you. Thank you very much,
Tatawagin
Sir Dan.
ko rin po para dito na sila maupo, wag na sa gilid. May I also call on Kenneth Isaiah Ibasco Abante. Another Urago na Bicolano. Si Kenneth po, pinakamaikling bio note. He is the president of We Solve Foundation. Sa amin nung Naga City People's Council, kilalang-kilala namin ang We Solve pag nagkakaroon kami ng budget hearing. Siya po ang pag-asa namin pag humaharap kami para bawasan, ayusin ang budget ng city. Ano po yung We Solve? They empowers communities towards systems change in the Philippines. Hindi lang po Bicol, including yung Tarabangan Bicol Disaster Volunteer Network for Climate Adaptation and Disaster Risk Reduction. Then, siya rin po kasama ng Safe and Sound Cities Naga Project and Move as One Coalition for Sustainable Transport and the People's Budget Coalition for Budget Transparency and Accountability. Pag nanood ho kayo ng budget hearing sa Kongreso, sa Senado, makikita po ninyo yung technocrat na nasa likod. Iyan po si Ken. Ngayon nakita na ninyo ng personal. From 2012 to 2016, Ken served in the Department of Finance in various roles, covering tax, customs, local finance, budget, economic policy, and strategy, and the leadership transition. He finished his management engineering degree with minor in philosophy from Ateneo de Manila University. Pwede kong sambitin yung 2012 kasi bata pa po siya. And a master's in public administration and international development from Harvard Kennedy School in 2019. Ken has been recognized locally, nationally and globally, most recently as one of the most outstanding young men of the Philippines in 2023. For socio, civic, and voluntary leadership. Ang tawag ko sa kanya ni Nobel Peace Prize laureate Maria Ressa. He calls Ken the civic engagement at work. But ito po ang human side ni Ken. Baka tinay nyo na sa kanya, puros numbers po. Tao pa rin siya. Hindi pa robot. Okay. Ken loves to cook adobo. Yun. Yung mga mahilig kumain ng adobo. But recognizes his cooking is not as nearly as good as his mother's. Yan po ang second speaker natin. Okay. Now, may I call on the third speaker? Corazon Jimenez Texon.
Jimenez, Texon Jimenez.
Yes. Baliktad po yan. Okay. Often referred to as Corazon Texon Jimenez. Yun. Siya po ang isang Filipina public official who served as General Manager of the Metropolitan Manila Development Authority, MMDA. During her tenure, she held the rank of Undersecretary and played a key role in several major initiatives. Disaster preparedness, mostly. She was actively involved in briefings and programs aimed at enhancing disaster resilience of Metro Manila. MMDA leadership. As General Manager, she oversaw the day-to-day operations of MMDA, including, yun ang problema natin sa Naga ngayon, traffic management, waste disposal, and flood control. Tama-tama, nandito siya. Yun ang pinag-uusapan natin sa Naga at sa buong Kabikulan. She has been associated with community-level health programs such as free surgery initiatives in Malabon. But most important, alam ko, hindi ho papayag yung grupo namin ng alumni rito pag hindi ko sinabi. She's one of our champions ng AIM alumni. So ladies and gentlemen, ito po yung tatlong speakers natin for this afternoon.
Thank you very much for the very short introduction. I was asked to speak in English because a copy of this might be sent to Messrs. Trump, Netanyahu, and Khamenei. Okay. When I usually speak at ECOP, I would be introduced by the chairman of ECOP as very simply as Ernie by day, Cecilia also by day. Anyways, good day everyone. First, let me thank Dr. Mario Villanueva, the dynamic president of Naga College Foundation, soon to be a university, and Mr. Dan De Leon, founder and president of WRI, for inviting me to this forum. I am pleased to be with, a young technocrat and a grand lady. So I'm the old man. My task is to focus on the geopolitics of the ongoing war and possible regional development responses. The expected takeaways from my talk are possibly the fact that the U.S. decision, unbeknownst to many, to start the war with Iran is not a spur of the moment impulse. There's a very long history between Iran and Israel. Next, the collateral damage of the war can be greater than the costs to the protagonists themselves. Third, the Middle East war today could turn into World War III if China, Russia, and North Korea on one hand, and Japan, the UK, Australia, Middle East allies join the Royal Rumble. Otherwise, we're okay. Now, the Philippines, hosting of a munitions plant for the U.S., okay, which is already an approved plan, could force China's hand, especially where the Taiwan issue comes into play. Now, even if the ongoing war ends soon, normalization in many parts of the world might take some time. Okay? So let me start with a quote from the Bible. According to the Bible, the history of hatred between Iran and Israel started thousands of years ago. In Genesis 25:23, the Lord told Rebekah while she was pregnant with Jacob and Esau, "Two nations are in your womb, and two peoples from within you shall be divided." As it turned out later, Jacob led a nation that is now called Israel, and Esau and his descendants, the Amalekites, formed what is now Iran. I'll start my talk with part one, geopolitics and the war. Geopolitics is really simply about how geographical factors such as location, natural resources, climate, and size influence international politics, foreign policy, and power dynamics among nations. It's about how states compete for control over territory and resources to achieve a strategic advantage, treating the world as a very complex and interconnected system. Okay. Geopolitics and the war, very simple. The geopolitical conflict in the Middle East today is a long and protracted battle of ideologies, beliefs, military armies, and economies. On economies, Ken will expound, and Ma'am Coratec. The ongoing war that started with the so-called unprovoked attack of Iran by the U.S. is not what it seems to be. It is a continuation of a long, protracted war. And this war has deeper roots that most people would probably not understand. I'll give you a chronology, a quick chronology of the war. First, February 27, that's when your friend ordered Operation Epic Fury. The following day, the U.S. Navy, Air Force, and Marine Corps bombed Iran's command and control infrastructure, missiles, unmanned aerial vehicle sites, or UAVs, and radar installations. February 28, Iran attacked 4 U.S. bases in retaliation. That's in Qatar, Kuwait, UAE, and Bahrain. March 1st, Mr. Trump made a declaration that the war will likely end in 4 to 5 weeks, as if he is in complete control. March 11, Iran attacked 2 commercial ships along the Strait of Hormuz, Safe Sea Vishnu and Mayuri Nari. By March 17, there were already 17 commercial vessels that were attacked by Iran in that region. No-nonsense position of Iran. You wanted a war? We'll give it to you. Since the war began, oil prices have risen in many parts of the world to as high as $107 per barrel from within the vicinity of 70 before the war. up by more than 40%. Fast forward in the Philippines, it's 81.6%. That's why in EDSA, you see 30,000 cars less every day, even on a heavy Friday afternoon and evening. Let's continue with the chronology of the war. U.S. strikes targeted Iranian military assets and the Islamic Republic's top leadership, and they were able to kill the supreme leader, the Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. Tehran's assembly of experts appointed his son, Mojtaba Khamenei, to succeed him. And right there and then, Iran hit the U.S. military facilities in the region, including Israel, and even civilian infrastructure in the Gulf states. But they were targeting more the oil installations. Many people thought that they were fighting for oil, but it's crazy. If you want to get other countries' oil, why are you decimating the, diba? So it doesn't make sense. After that, Israel stepped up its airstrikes, again, this time in Lebanon, after the Hezbollah also fired rockets into Israel in support of Iran. You see, when the U.S. declared war on Iran, they thought they're just going to fight Iran. That's where they were wrong. Because for the past 2 decades, Iran has been building alliances with belligerent states, which I will discuss in a little bit. The attack quickly escalated into a regional war. So we don't call it the Iran war anymore. It's now a regional war with widespread ramifications for critical supply chain and humanitarian aid. Iran's effective closure of the Strait of Hormuz has caused a global energy shock, prompting the International Energy Agency to release 400 million barrels from its strategic reserve. Trump's war the aims of Trump on the war were at most unclear. From a simple curtailment of Iran's nuclear program, which they have been doing for the past several years, to capitulation to all U.S. and Israel's demands, to the total collapse of the Islamic Republic regime. In no uncertain terms, Trump said, we want a new regime. We will appoint, once we overcome Iran, we will appoint the next leader. He thought it's easy to do that. There are several sectors that allege, perhaps, just perhaps, U.S. has a real motive, which it does not admit. And it has got to do, shall I continue? Or you can edit this. It has got to do with possibly the derailment of China's oil imports from Iran and Europe. You see, the oil imports of China, 90% of which usually come from Iran, okay, is used to fund the energy needs of 1.2 billion people and the need for electricity for data centers, which they have all over the world, and AI technology development. As we already know, this is now an AI world. Whoever controls AI controls the world. And there is rumor that China is about to overtake the U.S. in terms of technology development. So, some sectors are saying that is the real motive for the war. I don't know. I don't know. Trump wants NATO allies to help free up the Strait of Hormuz, through which 20% of global oil exports pass, And then he said that will end the war. All right. Let's second guess. Let me second guess. What's in the mind of the Iranians at this time? Does Iran want to continue with the war? It says, yes, we will, we will continue. But I think Iran already wants to stop the war. If they come to an agreement, okay? Because Iran has internal troubles as well, And they were surprised with this attack, okay? So I think Iran wants the war to stop, but not at any price. Not if it means agreeing to all of Washington's demands. Iran knows that it has the strategic patience to outlast the U.S. in this war. Plus, it has geography on its side. You see, Iran has the longest coastline of any Gulf state that can be used to threaten global shipping and trade. So that's the advantage of Iran. For Iran, the war must end. If it agrees, the war should end with two things. Cast iron guarantee that the U.S. or Israel will no longer attack Iran. Number two, that the U.S. and Israel should pay them reparations for the billions of dollars worth of damage that have already been done by both countries. Next, let's talk about Israel. Does Israel want to end the war? No. Two countries don't want to end the war. If U.S. and Iran want to end the war, I think Israel and UAE don't want, or Saudi Arabia don't want the war to stop yet, not yet. They're not in a hurry to end this war. They want, Israelis want to see as much as possible of Iran's ballistic missile stocks destroyed first, along with storage depots, command and control centers, radar sites, and also a decimation of the IRGC, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, which is not only a military arm, but it also has, a lot of say on who rules Iran. Israel sees that the missiles and the nuclear program of Iran are a major existential threat to Israel. That is the reason why it wants Israel, leveled to the ground. Because even if Iran promises that they will stop building their nuclear capability, it has been enriching uranium to 60% purity, far beyond the level needed for civil nuclear power. And for Saudi Arabia, the prince has already said he doesn't want the war to end soon. Not until the Middle East balance of power sways completely away from Iran and its belligerent allies. So these are the agendas that probably will continue to fund the war. No matter what Trump says, no matter what Ayatollah's son wants, there are other players that don't want the war to stop. Let me talk a little bit about Iran and its nuclear program so that we will understand. I'll give you a clue as to how long the war will last. It seems the U.S. is running out of ammunition, they say, although every week they are building to the tune of $4 billion of new munitions. Okay? But let's look at Iran. What's the history of Iran in terms of nuclear capability? Iran has pursued a nuclear program since we were in shorts, as early as 1957. And in the 1980s, during a war with Iraq, Iran decided to develop nuclear weapons to ensure its security. Consequently, Iran pursued agreements with China and Russia to support the program's research throughout the 1990s. In the summer of 2022, of 2002, the National Council of Resistance of Iran, this is the umbrella organization made up of different Iranian dissident groups, exposed the existence of 2 Iranian nuclear sites that were hidden from the UN International Atomic Energy Agency, or IAEA. By 2003, pressure from diplomats sent by the United Nations and other countries tried to halt Iran's nuclear program. Iran was forced to agree, to promise, and insists that they will only keep its centrifuges for nuclear energy, like many other countries have. The thing is, they did not make good on their promise, on their commitment to even report what they were doing, and they continued their covert activities. I know one Filipino architect who was commissioned to build a huge, building, and when he found out that it was for nuclear purposes, he backed out. I said, I don't want to be part of this because this could destroy the whole world. He's a very good friend, and he's famous. I don't want to mention his name. In September 2005, the IAEA found that Iran was not really in compliance and made its findings, submitted it to the United Nations Security Council. In 2006, the Security Council adopted Resolution 1696 for Iran to suspend its uranium enrichment program and adopted a series of crippling economic sanctions on Iran for its failure to suspend its nuclear enrichment-related activities. Between 2011 and 2015, the international sanctions led Iran's economy to contract by 20%. Unemployment rate at the time also rose by an identical 20%. Dole ARD NEPO knows what 20% employment rate means. That's a lot. That's a lot. In 2013, Hassan Rouhani won the presidential election, and he won on the campaign promise, that he will get the sanctions on Iran away. So he won. So what did he do? He agreed to sit down with the United States, who convened several rounds of bilateral talks. But together with the United States, other nations joined in convincing Iran to make good its promises. It included China, France, Germany, Russia, and the UK. That was 13 years ago. 13 years ago, China, Russia were on the opposite side of Iran. Today, that's politics. There are no permanent, enemies or permanent friends. Yeah, okay? So, at that time, Iran agreed to negotiate with the superpowers. And because of the immensity of the powers facing them, Iran said, yeah, okay. So this resulted in the adoption of what they call the JCPOA, Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action. And the United Nations Security Council approved Resolution 2231, which paved the way for the relief of the sanctions. Because at the time, 20% contraction in economy is already making Iran suffer so hard. Okay? The JCPOA required Iran to reduce its stockpile by 98% for 15 years. That was so, crippling for them, but they had to agree. They also were asked to cut the number of operating centrifuges, okay, by 2/3 for 10 years, and provide inspectors from the United Nations full access whenever there's a need to inspect what they are doing. After that, JCPOA took effect on January 16, 2016. Iran's sanctions in Iran were relieved. And they got a windfall of $100 billion in exchange for their obedience. Okay? However, Iran, again, as expected, okay, continued to develop missiles which, according to the U.S., violated Resolution 2231. So, Iran has a reputation for, when they are pushed against the wall, they will agree, yes, promise. But when the inspectors leave, they continue with, that's why they have a lot of, they haven't run out yet of ammunition as we speak today. Okay, there's a JCPOA, plan of action. It somehow limited the nuclear capability of Iran. But what Iran did, okay, you want to cramp us, but that did not cramp the regional ambitions of Iran. So what it did was to look for allies who are like-minded, who can help them. With the windfall they got, Iran armed and trained Shiite militants through its Quds force, the international arm of the IRGC. Iran provided years of military training and aid to the Palestinian militant group Hamas, which enabled the October 7, 2023 attack on Israel. Iran also provided advanced armed drones to Hezbollah in Lebanon, trained and funded more than 100,000 Shiite fighters in Syria, supplied ballistic missiles and drones to Yemen's Houthis, and helped Shiite militias in Iraq build missile capabilities. So, when the UN crammed on Iran to lessen their nuclear capability, it used other, allies to improve their capability for a possible aggression. The U.S. government considers Iran to be a foremost state sponsor of terrorism. The U.S. believes that Iran spends practically $1 billion annually to finance these proxy wars. Okay? And there are 100,000 to 185,000 IRGC Quds Force partner forces across Afghanistan, Gaza, Lebanon, Pakistan, Syria, and Yemen. There are rumors some are in Southeast Asia, and we'll go to that. Israel believes that Iran is its major existential threat and should be totally demolished. Okay, that's the program of Iran. That's why it's very strong. And I think it was underestimated by the United States and Israel. Let's go back to history. The February 28th war is not the first war. Okay? So let's look at the early clashes of Iran with the United States and Israel. Okay, as I said, the JCPOA only addressed Iran's nuclear program, not its revisionism or ballistic missile programs. The first Trump administration withdrew from the JCPOA, pledging to seek more a comprehensive deal, since it was not effective because it is being violated blatantly by Iran. In 2018, the Trump administration began to reimpose new sanctions on Iran and demanded that the European countries also withdraw from the JCPOA. The U.S. sanctions sparked the worst economic crisis that Iran faced in 40 years and cut Iranian oil exports by more than half. This did not bother Iran. This only emboldened the Iranian hardliners. Next. The Trump administration placed maximum pressure to bring Iran to the negotiating table. And Iran began to contravene the JCPOA's restrictions on its nuclear program, and because of that, tensions continue to rise in the Middle East. In April 2019, the U.S. branded the IRGC as a terrorist organization. That's the whole military component of Iran. With an intelligence report of potential Iranian attacks on the U.S. troops, the U.S. deployed bombers, carriers, and additional forces to the Middle East. Over the next 6 months, after that, after April, 6 oil tankers within the vicinity of the Strait of Hormuz were attacked, and the U.S. blamed it on Iran. Okay. In June 2019, what happened was that Iran downed a U.S. Global Hawk drone in the Strait of Hormuz. Trump ordered a cyber attack and imposed new sanctions. On December 31, 2019, the U.S. Embassy in Baghdad was attacked, apparently by the Iranians. Days later, tensions peaked when the U.S. killed Iran's Quds Force commander Soleimani in the Baghdad airstrike. Now, Iran would no longer adhere to restrictions and accidentally shut down, remember that commercial passenger plane from Ukraine? That was part of this Iran-Israel thing. Ukraine has nothing to do with, but at that time, Russia, Ukraine were on the other side against Iran. In late 2020, Trump increased sanctions. Iran boosted uranium enrichment to levels well beyond the limits of the nuclear deal. Okay. In October 2023, the conflict between Israel and the Palestinian militant group Hamas further escalated tensions between Iran and Israel. The proxy forces struck in protest of Israel's military incursion into the Gaza Strip. And the U.S. ordered airstrikes on 2 Iranian-backed facilities in October 2023, and again on February 2, 2024. We're getting closer to where we are now. The Houthis in Yemen and Hezbollah in Lebanon, both actors that are within the axis of resistance, have also launched attacks against Israel through the Red Sea and the border with Lebanon. In 2024, for the first time, Israel and Iran confrontation started face-to-face. So instead of using the Houthis, the Yemenis, the etc., Iran already, you know, attacked the, you know, attacked Israel. Okay. Following the killing of the Hamas and Hezbollah leaders, Iran also launched 180 ballistic missiles against Israel in October 2024. Israel launched also its counterattack. Okay. After that, Trump returned to the White House, and he restored his maximum pressure campaign against Tehran while initiating negotiations on Iran's nuclear program. Okay. Israel was against Trump's negotiation. Israel is a hardliner. Okay. And Israel was always complaining about the clandestine efforts of Iran to develop nuclear weapons. On June 12, 2025, the International Atomic Energy Agency declared Iran as violative again of non-proliferation agreement. The next day, Israel launched a unilateral military strike against Iran, targeting nuclear facilities, missile factories, senior military officials, etc. And Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi declared this as an act of war. And Iran, again, retaliated. Unbeknownst to us, that was just basically less than a year ago. There was already this, we only thought that the war started on February 28. This was going on already between them, but it did not involve us too much. At the time, Prime Minister Netanyahu described the operation as a last resort effort to prevent Iran from acquiring nuclear weapons. Unbeknownst to him, Iran already had a stockpile enough to last a long war. Following a week of airstrikes between Israel and Iran, the U.S. attacked 3 major Iranian nuclear sites, Fordo, Isfahan, and Natanz. That was on June 21st, 2025. This was much publicized, and people were thinking, wow, we might get into a war. Iran did not declare war, nor the U.S. The Trump administration claimed the strikes were significant to hinder the capability of Iran. But the United Nations inspectors found out, no, it did not make a dent, because they were clandestinely doing it night and day. I mean, building the stockpile. Iran retaliated on June 23, 2025, which attacked the Al Udeid base in Qatar. And then, that was mid-year last year, since, according to Trump, there was not enough, damage, he just said, okay, let's call it a ceasefire. So, for a while, the U.S. did not do anything because there was nothing to retaliate to. There was some relative peace between the U.S. and Iran. And the truce has largely held until February 27, 2026, when Operation Epic Fury was approved. Okay, let's now go to the geopolitical implications. The Iran war will influence global politics. We know that in terms of the balance of power in the Middle East, which is very important, since Middle East is a major source of energy for the whole world. The stability of the energy supply chain, and the credibility of the nuclear diplomacy. Okay. The evolving competition among major powers. Because of this, the war has gone beyond Iran's borders, because several countries are already involved in the power struggle. Next, what is the strategy of Iran? Iran cannot fight the U.S. one-on-one. Okay? So, the U.S. can send a huge troop, but the strategy of Iran is to use missiles, drones, and they have more drones, which probably cost 20,000, and to offset that, you have to spend 2 million for each drone. So, if it's a war of attrition, you cannot beat Iran. Okay? So, and it also uses its proxy allies, the other dissidents that are similarly have similar inclinations. This approach reflects the attempt of Iran to offset the limitation in its conventional military power. The conflict has already spread across multiple arenas where weaker actors can impose political and economic costs on stronger adversaries, plus the fact that they control the Strait of Hormuz. The Strait of Hormuz is the world's most strategically important oil transit passage, where 20% of internationally traded petroleum moves through each day. Any military tension in this area can introduce uncertainty into the global markets and maritime security, and will affect many nations' inflation, trade stability, and national energy and food security. Beyond energy markets, the Iran war intersects also with the fragile architecture of nuclear diplomacy. See, on one hand, Iran is willing to sit down and talk about limitations. You, U.S., limit your nuclear capability. We will also limit ours. But on the side, Iran does not comply with any agreement. Okay. War complicates this diplomatic landscape and may reduce the feasibility of a negotiated compromise. Another dimension is really the great power politics, because the Middle East is a strategic arena where interests of the U.S., China, Russia, and other European states intersect. The U.S. maintains security partnerships across the Gulf, while China relies heavily on energy imports from the Middle East. Russia has expanded its diplomatic presence and influence in the Middle East. So if these two countries go to the side of Iran, this could spur greater geopolitical competition within the region. Next, the political dynamics inside Iran will further shape the trajectory of the ongoing war. Okay. Many people think that because of military pressures, it will weaken the political regime of Iran. But Iran's structure is so well entrenched that any disruption can easily be answered. Day one, a leader dies. In a few hours, there's already another leader. Unlike in many other democratic or other countries, it would be, but Iran has a seamless way. Historical experience during the Iran-Iraq War shows the capacity of the Iranian political system to maintain stability under extreme pressure. Contemporary Iran today possesses powerful security institutions, including the IRGC, or Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, which plays central roles both in national defense and internal political order. If you ask me, the Iran war must also be interpreted within the broader pattern of instability that has affected Middle East during the past 2 decades. Civil wars, proxy conflicts, and fragile state institutions have created an environment in which local conflicts easily intersect with regional rivalries. Okay. Public debate often evaluates wars primarily on their immediate military outcomes. Such an approach overlooks what I call a deeper structural consequence that follows major geopolitical confrontations such as this. Wars reshape perceptions of power, alter alliance commitments, and influence states' strategic doctrines. The long-term implications of this war will prove more significant than the immediate operational results. So don't look at who wins in the military battleground, because this has longer term implications. Over the past 2 decades, you ask me, will the war last long? Just imagine, for the past 20 years, Iran has been developing a strong cooperative ties with, because he knows cannot fight one-on-one. So the strength of Iran lies not internally, but with its ano. And these other guys are so belligerent that no one can tell them, stop the war. Now, these forces that are friendly to Iran will pursue their own local political agendas, but their alignment with Iranian objectives increases the likelihood that the Iran war will activate more regional arenas simultaneously. Maritime geography further widens the scope of potential confrontation. Persian Gulf, Strait of Hormuz, they are very, strategic, and any movement there, any limitation, any disruption, the whole world knows that they will all be affected. So many countries are already telling the U.S., stop the war, because, when elephants fight, usually it's the ants that are stepped on. Alliances will change. Remember, 2 years ago, China and Russia were on the side of the U.S. telling Iran, stop. Now, they are, okay. So that's something to watch out for, okay? As conflict escalates, okay, because the U.S. has several bases elsewhere in the Middle East, this help widen the scope of the confrontation. Okay. 2 possible scenarios. War could end abruptly if the parties agree, next, on the terms and conditions as well as the reparations. Okay, so it's not just by saying, okay, let's stop this, let's stop the fighting, let's just shake hands. No, Iran will not agree to that. The war could, however, escalate if China, Russia, North Korea, on one hand, and Japan, UK, Australia, the Middle East allies will join the Royal Rumble. China is hesitating because it has one eye is on the Middle East, the other, of course, is in Taiwan. And, they're probably looking at the possibility that next year, when this is over, China can, focus on getting back Taiwan for a number of good reasons, mostly economic. Now, the costs of the Iran war. Okay. Let's just show some of the numbers. the cost of the Iran war, 10.35 billion in military capital to 3.2 trillion in market value vanishing into death machines. Washington, 3.7 billion cost in the first 100 hours alone. The US has already lost 2.5 billion in hardware, 1.1 billion in early warning system in Qatar that has been damaged by Iran's bombings, and several F-15E Strike Eagles, which are very, very costly and very effective. As the nations bleed, the military-industrial contractors in the U.S. raced to replace the $4 billion in munitions spent per week. Brent crude oil has vaulted from 70 to nearly 120 per barrel, triggering 3.2 trillion hemorrhage in the global equities within the first 96 hours. Tokyo and Seoul market indices were down by 8%. 20% of the world's LNG or liquefied natural gas are now stranded. So the cost has increased by 300%, and it could increase some more. Okay, last few slides. The Philippine economy faces a double whammy as the peso breaches the 60 to $1. How much now? 61. Woo! Wow. Now, the problem is, as the dollar increases, the peso devaluates. Even if you don't add our foreign debt, because they are dollar denominated, it increases every time the peso slumps. Okay? And this creates I'll borrow your word, friend. This creates a punishing hyperinflationary cycle. Even if there were proposed hikes on operators, transport operators, they will just shift the costs to vulnerable customers. Labor leaders, RD, will probably use this disproportionate financial strain to justify a 200 peso across-the-board wage increase, which can, in turn, render the Philippine economy less and less globally competitive. So what gives? Oil prices since the start of the war? The Philippines seems to be the hardest hit. We're all, for once, If in PISA we're number 79, 78, here we're number 1. Grabe. Next. Now, even Qatar, UAE, they're not spared, but what's 7.9%? All right. Some regional development responses. I'll talk about Southeast Asia in general. Southeast Asia as a region has taken a neutral stance in spite of the fact that the Philippines and Thailand have a U.S. treaty alliance. Southeast Asia trade export fully dependent. Oil price increases. It's not just the price that's really going to hurt. It's whether the commodity is available. We just imported 1 million crude oil, and that's good for 5 days only. So what happens after 5 days? So it's not the price alone that's really boggling the imagination of our leaders. It's the availability per se. Okay. So I think possible response, these countries, including us, should aspire for self-sufficiency in food, energy, and dollar inflows, as food and energy imports and product services exports will be reduced. Iran is not popular in, Southeast Asia, but it is an underdog. And Asians favor the underdog. So I don't know what goes. So Southeast Asian countries, while remaining neutral, should be constantly prepared for possible retaliatory attacks, especially the fact seems that there are possible ISIS militants in Indonesia or southern Philippines, which Iran can immediately activate. Okay, the ongoing war will affect air travel. In January, I was here, I paid, NCF, paid, I think, 5,171. My ticket this time, it's already 10,000 plus. Okay. So next time, I'll have to, take the... what, from Dole's point of view, 40 billion remittances are, in jeopardy. That's 9% of our GDP. Worse, if they are repatriated, we already have a 5.8% unemployment rate. How much we can no longer, how do we, diba? That's something that public, private sector should really think about, okay? Next. Oil is not just about gasoline. It's also about nitrogen-based, fertilizers, which we need for food production. So the Philippine developing countries should exert effort to modernize agriculture, improve productivity, and encourage food production within smaller communities and homes. Lote mo. Yeah, plant okra and all right. Here's the catch. There are, the major hegemons are US, China, Russia, etc. On the longer term, okay, Southeast Asian countries are doing business with all these hegemons. And China seems to be more stable and reliable as a business partner. Because the US sometimes with its, with the way it conducted itself during tariff negotiations, it seems not to care too much about its, Southeast Asian partners. In the war, it probably does not give possible, much regard as to its business partners. So we should watch out about perceptions of the global roles played by the US and China, because they could shift. The world becoming more reliant on China and Russia is not in the interest of America's geopolitics. Okay. Let me leave you with a poem that I wrote once upon a midnight. With apologies to Richard Lovelace, who wrote to Lucasta on going to the wars in 1648. I wasn't around then. And Edgar Allan Poe in 1845. I said, once upon a midnight dreary, while I pondered weak and weary, thinking about some crazy war, listening to speeches, what a bore, can't understand what the war's for. Someone knocked, I ran to the door, and the raven said, nevermore. I'm having hallucinations, the war's joined by other nations. We went through these, the 70s, no, not again in these 20s. Prices up for necessities, gas and food will be expensive, human life's cheap, makes me pensive. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Geopolitics, like it or not, is a difficult game to play. Power and control of territories and resources have always been a motivation to play a major role in politics. Sadly, in war, there are hardly winners, mostly losers. When elephants fight, they step on the ants, who are first to die. So, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Did I scare you?
So, do you want to ask the questions now or we
Maybe
finish
later.
all of them para mag-panel na lang tayo?
Yeah.
Tapusin na natin lahat.
Yes. I
So,
think.
okay, so let's hear from Ken.
Thank you po. And indeed, I share Dr. Erwin's, or Dr. Ernie's very scary forecast. No? I'm also very scared. And in fact, my major argument po for today's presentation is that government and our whole communities must act in this emergency at least as seriously as we did during the pandemic. At least as seriously. But we are not yet there. So I'll share a little bit why that's the case. And then I'll share stories from our community movements. No? Para maramdaman po talaga natin kung ano yung nararamdaman ng ating mga communities po sa ground. So in order to motivate this argument and to build up this argument, I wanted to share just a few key data from why we are vulnerable. No, I think Sir Ernie already gave a lot of very important lessons in history with us. I'll try to discuss a little bit more about the economic side and community-based side. No, so, yung una po, we are very much oil dependent. And our oil is pretty much almost all import dependent. At least 95% of our oil is imported and comes from the Persian Gulf. No, so any global price increase will hit us. And it is actually now hitting us. Our oil reserves, as Sir Ernie mentioned a while ago, are only 45 to 60 days. No? And it's also below the 90-day recommended international benchmark. And I wanted to share that oil prices in the Philippines affect a lot of us, no? Because many of our sectors are actually very oil dependent. So from transportation, which I'll talk to you in a little bit because that's where we organize, to even food inflation, fertilizer, urea, everything that our farmers need for proper planting so that we can secure our food supply, that's also dependent on imported oil. Oil prices affect our core standard of living. In a recent study by Dr. J.C. Punong-Bayan, one of our friends, he says that a 10 percentage point increase in year-to-year growth of oil prices means a 0.65 percentage point increase in headline inflation. So for things that, because that's very important for us, no, and for the communities that we serve. And in fact, one of the most important crises that we have to recover from as a society is our massive stunting rate among children. 1 in every 4 kids under 5 in the Philippines is stunted. Kung sabihin bansot, dahil hindi nakakain ng tama. And food inflation, any increase in food inflation means hungrier children that will not be able to have their brains and bodies develop. And therefore also cannot learn in school, which also feeds into the learning loss. No? Kanina nasabi ni Sir yung sa PISA. More directly, other than the remittances that we get from 1 million OFWs in the Middle East, 2 million people living in the Middle East, if they're also non-workers, are the actual human lives. And allow me to share a very personal story because my sister lives in Abu Dhabi, in UAE. No? And during the war, no, the US and Israel attack, no, Iran, and then nagkaroon po ng exchanges. No? My 5-year-old niece actually heard the missiles being intercepted, no, sa taas ng bahay nila. Naririnig nila. In fact, 2 weeks ago, we were supposed to go to the UAE. We needed to cancel it. And in our call, because we were very worried about my sister and her family in the UAE, my sister, of course, told Amani, my niece, that Uncle Ken, Lola, Lolo can no longer go here. And Amani asked, why? Is it because of the bombs? And to me, that was really heartbreaking because no 5-year-old should ever say the word bomb. Ang lalim-lalim po nung hugot natin dito, because these are real lives, real communities that are affected by the US-Israel war on Iran that has deep geopolitical history. And I wanted to show a few slides po related to transportation and mobility because that's where we organize. We also organize a lot on the budget. So some of the solutions that I will recommend here, coming from our consultations from our community movements, also come from our experience studying the national budget. Ilan pong slides ito coming from our, previous slide, coming from our COVID-19 slides in 2020. The first time we were pushing for public transport and mobility assistance for our transport workers and commuters stranded because of the pandemic. And you will see in the few slides that I will show, the pictures are eerily similar to what is happening today. Okay? Ganito rin po yung nangyayari sa trend ngayon. Next slide. Ganito rin po yung nangyayari sa transport workers natin ngayon. In fact, many of them are on strike. Transport workers were forced to beg on the streets because oil prices, hindi na nila kaya yung boundary nila. Because they are stuck in a business model called the boundary system. Which to us, transport advocates are a system of bondage that keeps transport workers poor and commuters stuck in a system of indignity in transport and commuting. Next slide. Commonwealth. This was from before, but you saw the pictures on the internet. About people not being able to get public transportation because PUVs couldn't ply their routes. Hindi na kaya eh. And I wonder, Katz, whether you can show the video that I also shared to your messenger. Sige. And this video was taken by one of our fellow advocates called Commuters for Change. Ito po yung kwento ng isang transport worker na in-interview nila. Ano yung nararanasan nila? Wala siya sound? Sige. Okay lang. Babasahin ko na lang po yung sinasabi ni tatay. Ayan. Okay. Kahit sabihin mo minimum na lang, 695 pesos, 700 pesos, ay lalabanan ko na. Kaysa sa ganito, takbo ka ng takbo, walang kasiguruhan. Ano po yung diferensya simula nung nagtaas yung presyo ng gas? Kung lumiliit po ba yung kita? Yung 50 pesos lang naka-maintain sa 50 medyo, okay pa, kahit paano nakakain pa pamilya ko ng maayos. 50 pesos na gas. Naka-boundary kami, nakapag-diesel kami. Tapos simula nung halos araw-araw na pagtaas, linggo-linggo daw tumataas, nawawala ang boundary ko, 1,000. Kagabi, magkano diesel natin? 2,100 o 2,100. Ngayon, magkano na? 3,100. Wala, nag-aaway kaming mag-asawa, wala kaming nauwi. Nauwi lang namin 300. Alam mong pinakapagod, kinikita namin yung magdamag na puyat, magdamag na pagod, magdamag na gutom. Gusto na nga ng asawa ko, isauli na tong jeep. 300 ang kita namin sa magdamag, 24 hours. 24 hours po silang pumapasada. Mula 12 ng umaga hanggang 10 ng umaga. No? Basta halos kulang 24 hours yung biyahe namin. Kinakain namin puro tinapay. They forgo their food so that their kids can go to school. On the ground, ito po yung nararamdaman ng ating mga kababayan. No? Who suffers? The parents, but also the kids. Again, this is a very real story of all the numbers I showed you a while ago. Transport inflation, food inflation, real lives being affected. Okay, sige po. Next slide. So our approach po, we know how serious this is. My argument is, the degree of mobilization in the oil crisis should be at least as serious as the pandemic mobilization. Right now, we are nowhere near what we were doing during the pandemic. And even during the pandemic, we thought that government was not doing enough. No, but during the pandemic, in 2020, government passed 2 laws. Now, the Bayanihan to Heal as one act and the Bayanihan to Recover as one act. Combined, they pushed for fiscal support up to 700 billion pesos. No, they realigned some of the things in the budget, and they pushed for, including us, we pushed for things like labor support, small business wage subsidies, improvements in health facilities, trying to transform the program of public transportation so that people can move from a boundary system that's based on passengers to one that is based on performance standards, schedules, and transport workers have a more stable income called service contracting, na hindi po libreng sakay. No? Not free rides, but actual net service contracting. Hindi libreng sakay, siguradong sakay. Siguradong kita para sa transport workers, siguradong sakay, no, para sa commuters. And now, we are nowhere near that number. Fuel subsidies to transport workers, less than 10 billion pesos. Service contracting, sinash ng Congress last year. Even protected bike lane networks that will allow us to wean from oil dependence in the transport sector, less than 1 billion pesos. Baka konti. No? I'm very worried. Apo, next slide, please. Ayan, nasabi ko na po yan kanina. So, for transport and mobility in particular, my message is very simple po, no? To be more resilient to the oil crisis and to future oil crises. This is what the Dutch did in the 1960s, 1970s oil crisis, where they said as a society, we should no longer have a situation where our people suffer because of things beyond our control. Such as the US, Israel, Iran war. And in the transport and mobility system, what we need is to reimagine and build our country, not just for cars, which consumes a lot of oil, but for people and nature. This is, if I were to summarize the whole field of transport economics in 30 seconds, it will be this GIF, no? This animation. You can take away space from cars while giving them more space at the same time. By ensuring that people move from their private motor vehicles to walking, cycling, and public transportation, which allows us to have space for public parks, for trees along our roads, for public housing. Transport economics in 30 seconds. It's not rocket science. No? And this is what countries who have experienced the oil crisis said, ito po yung gagawin namin as a whole country. Okay, next slide please. We must change the narrative, frame the right problem, ask the right question. Ngayon, I think our policy debates are too focused, I think, on the demand or even taxation side. Where I think, mas kailangan po ng fundamental rethink of how our sectors operate. How dependent are we on imported oil? So kailangan mag-shift to walking, cycling, and public transportation and renewables. No, and renewable energy. Next slide, please. Yan. Very clearly, again, not rocket science. Mas marami talagang papagalaw ang bike lane, sidewalk, at transit way kaysa car lanes. Next slide. And this is what our coalitions do. We are an advocacy coalition that pushes for safe, humane, and inclusive public transport. Since 2020, we organized 140 organizations and 77,000 individuals to try to reverse the terrible public budget that's in favor of road infrastructure towards public transport, walking, and cycling. We pushed for actually more than 1,000 kilometers of bike lanes, kaya lang may mga binabaklas po. More than now 100,000 transport workers engaged with better pay and contracts, and training young mobility leaders all around the country to lead mobility movements in their respective cities. Next slide, please. If you want to learn more, we have a book called Making Together Work, where we talk about many of the community movements that we helped organize over the years. Ay, sorry. Ay, sige po. Balik daw po. So po nila salamat po. So bit.ly/Making Together Work. Pwede na po? Okay. So yan. Other street transformation. Germany. Oh, what changed? It costs nearly nothing to do this.
Is it a lake?
Yeah. So it used to be a freeway. Now they're transforming it into a public space. Traffic evaporation. Nag-evaporate po yung traffic. Next slide. In Utrecht, in the Netherlands, sabi nila, Pilipinas, hindi naman yan tulad ng Netherlands or London or Paris. Kahit yung Paris, hindi naman tulad ng Paris dati. Kahit yung Utrecht, di naman sila Utrecht nung dati. Right? Next slide. We don't need to look far. We have wonderful examples. Iloilo, Marikina. Part of the Marikina bike lane restoration was from the budgets that we pushed in Congress. The Intramuros pedestrianization project in General Luna was part of the budgets that we pushed. Our protest against San Miguel's construction of the Pasig River Expressway, they were supposed to build an elevated expressway on top of the Pasig River, where all cities all around the world are tearing them down. Nihonbashi, the freeways in the US, marami po sa kanila. They're removing it. Iloilo's leading the way. So very soon we will have one in Naga. It's very exciting. Next slide. And so we should reverse the great inequality of our roads. We should reimagine our streets for people and nature. Next. Diba? Ganda kung ganyan, no? Mausok, maingay, delikado, daming nababangga. No? In front of NCF and Kamhay, di ba po? Ito, no? Marami ring, may mga estudyanteng nababangga. Nakakatakot nga po eh. Buti nilang nakailag po yung estudyante doon sa, So, many of our agencies, success indicators for transportation prioritize, maximize vehicle speed, private vehicle speed, at the expense of what? At the expense of public transport prices, at the expense of the safety of our children. So, hindi pwedeng ganun. It must change, and this should push all of us to push for these changes. Next slide. Oh, this is just from yesterday.
You did a drone shot.
May drone shot po, no? This was in front of NCF, no, supported by Naga College Foundation, the car-free street. We had a small installation there sa likod po ng, there was a band competition. Ang galing ng NCF mag-organize. Go NCF. Next slide. Ito po yung gagawin natin sa MT Villanueva. That street, that same street that did the carless. We're working with architect Paulo Alcazarin, the same landscape architects who did Ayala, who did Singapore, with Malaysia. We're finalizing this in a couple of weeks.
We will see more trees.
Yes. We will recover the trees which were unfortunately cut. In Magsaysay, the trees, the beautiful trees were cut. It was a terrible, terrible mistake. Ano nangyayari? Eh di, magkukotse na lang ako, naka-aircon eh. But trees are public air conditioning. And they're free. They're free for people. Ayan po yung aming tactical urbanism team. This is led by our young people in Naga City. Si Neil of Biscast, actually. Neil Bartolome. So I think our Biscast head is here. So one of your top students po is a fellow under our program. He's leading the social preparation, did the interviews to each of the vendors. Parang naka-50 na yata siyang interviews across Liboton to help the city in this street transformation. So imagine in Naga, MT Villanueva, our busiest school street, it will be safer, the air will be cleaner, be less noisy, it will be safer for kids. And imagine that also Magsaysay gawin din natin. Peña Francia gawin din natin. The Heritage Street from Cathedral, no? Barlin, no? Through to the Naga River Esplanade. No? We're going to do it, no? So let's all push to make it happen. Ayan, sige, next po. Next. But nationally, more systemic, I think medyo na-discuss ko na po ito, no? But more systemically, bakit ang hirap kasing mag-commute? No, these are the more economic policy reasons for this. Did you know that because of the way that we've invested in our transport infrastructure and our transport system, public transit trips have actually collapsed by 14% from 2010 to 2019, even before the pandemic. It's still in a downward trajectory, sadly, as private car and motorcycle trips surged by 46%. And even if we budget for and fully fund the country's 2 trillion peso infrastructure pipeline, we will still have a shortage of 2.8 million daily passenger trips. So, part of our coalition po, when we presented this, we said, kailangan po mas maraming bus rapid transits, kailangan mas maraming cycleways, mas maraming service contracts for jeepney workers and transport workers para maibsan yung shortage na to. Car-centric budget, only 1% of the 2.8 trillion road-based infrastructure budget went to the expansion of public transport for people on buses, jeeps, bikes, and pedestrians. Just 1%. So if it's true that the budget is the clearest expression of a government's development agenda, we ordinary commuters are just given 1% of attention. Even if four-wheeled private vehicle owners nationally are just 6% of households. Konti lang po, no? Car-centric metrics, no, our agencies maximize for speeds of vehicles rather than the convenience and safety of commuters. And road space allocation is inequitable. Next. Car-centric taxation and even car-centric manuals. Sige po. I'll pause here and summarize some calls to action. Okay? So, yung una po, I think it's very, very important at the broad level that the oil crisis really galvanize all of us into collective action. We should remove our dependence on oil, especially on foreign oil. What does that take? It takes massive fiscal response coming from government, which we are not yet seeing right now. In transport, it means advocating for walking, cycling, and public transport and the transformation of our streets so that we become less dependent on oil. We push for renewables, renewable energy, electronic vehicles. The LTO recently had, to me, an illegal ban on electric vehicles on national highways. Which does not have, which is not good, which is actually not compliant with the law on EVIDA, no, Electric Vehicle Industry Development Act. The e-trikes. But a lot of e-trike users are actually single parents, senior citizens. Instead of educating them and strengthening their use so that they're safer, we've banned them on our roads. So, to me, I know po, no, medyo nagkakaroon ng debate dito, no, but if we look at the oil crisis, now is the chance to actually rethink many of these policies. We should support our transport workers, really changing the business model of our transport work through net service contracting, releasing the equity subsidy now for jeeps that are transitioning into modern units. So they're less dependent also on oil. They consume less. And then finally, for businesses, consider work from home arrangements. Really consider yes, they're also doing 4-day work weeks now, also in the city government, and also in the national government. And really fund, I think, the President's executive order. I think the President actually has some good frameworks and policies there in his executive order. But it needs massive fiscal resources to do this. No? And we've proven that when we have community movements that work together, we can push for these systems changes. And my invitation po is for all of us to try to work together to make this shift away from oil possible, and make sure that our communities, both here and abroad, and our families also abroad, are well supported through these terrible, terrible times. Thank you.
Hello. Yeah. No, it's working. Thank you very much for the presentation of Ernie and, of course, Ken. As early as 2001 to 2002, I was a student of AIM, and Professor Federico Macaranas brought out the word buka. Remember that, mga AIM? We have so many AIM students, alumni here. And of course, we are in a volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous situation right now. And it's happening, and it is a more deepening crisis that we are experiencing. So when I was with MMDA, there's really traffic inside and out of MMDA building. And I didn't even know what I'm doing in MMDA, being invited from a private sector. But, you know, it was really very challenging. That's why when I met with a new GM, Nicolas Torre, Hokot Duterte, and Kibuloy, yes, and I said, kung kinaya ko po, mas kaya nyo. Okay, so he was here, I think, a few days ago to check on your traffic management system. Are you working with him?
Yes, but we had a bike ride with him last Friday.
Yeah, he loves that because he bikes a lot. Okay, so during my time, we considered the Pasig River as an alternative for transportation, but we should have more of these ferries. No? Right now, we only have about 3 working ferries. Again, because of budget, we could not have more, but we were promised, no, that we will have more. We also had a road sharing that you have informed us, and hopefully we're able to do it in a 34-kilometer stretch of EDSA. 34-kilometer stretch, 6 LGUs within those areas. Nag-aaway po kami parati ng LGU about apprehensions, di ba? Because we could not, you know, hindi kami pwedeng makialam sa kanilang mga traffic enforcers within those areas. So, hopefully, we're able to tackle this. That would be free. Yung freely we can, you know, ride our vehicles with ease. But it's not. 400,000 vehicles use EDSA on a daily basis. We don't have public transportation. Hindi pa tapos yung ating subway. We're just starting, and hopefully we should have it in before 2030. So why am I here in Naga? I'm here in Naga because we have to do something right. Di ba? We have to do something kasi wala naman tayong magagawa sa crisis. You know, it's a war among people who do not want to listen to reason, who do not want to listen, you know, Sabi ko nga, ang dami nang namamatay. Ang daming namatay during the COVID and we have more deaths. Di ba? Parang hindi kino-consider. So one TikTok that I saw, bakit itong mga young military people are sent to war? Why can't the leaders just be in war among themselves and kill each other? I mean, that's the message of that TikTok. Pansin nyo, pinapadala ang mga bata. My own nephew was brought to Iraq. All right? We could not find him in 6 months. We don't know if he died already in Iraq when hindi ba time ni Saddam yan. So finally we found him. Okay? So this is not a funny thing anymore. It's crazy, and it is decided by a person by himself. And I was just listening earlier to YouTube, no? There was an interview that how come Trump is just the one deciding, and in fact with his son-in-law, Jared, who's married to one of the, it's on YouTube, so I'm not inventing things, no? So this war, you said, Ernie, nasaan ka, will last, and you also concur to this. So what do we do? So among ourselves, if I ask each one of you, we are 20 here, what will you do? What will you do? So earlier, I was talking to some government officials here, Dole, I think DTI is here. So we will have a project here in Naga. Ken and Emil. This is about the bamboo industry. Okay, we will be training bamboo farmers, and then we will have a project. Are we using the property of Mario here? Thank you very much, and of course Dan. So we'll have that. Yesterday I was I was there in the graduation of 187 4 years old in Barangay Kararayan. So we are, yeah, cute. They're so cute, but do they know what's happening? Do the parents know what's happening? They don't know. And they are part of this crisis. But as you said in Naga, parang you don't feel, except the cost of the fuel, the gasoline or the diesel. So we're enhancing their structures. We'll make it more beautiful for them to come to school. And we are expecting 200 children for the next school year. So those things, small things, we should be able to do. In Metro Manila, I was with the First Lady, Liza Marcos, because we said, let's do urban gardening. For food security, we'll have it in all the cities of Metro Manila, and it can be done also here in Naga. Just an ordinance would do it, will make it, because I was able to do it in Siargao. I was there in Siargao constructing child development centers. And there was an ordinance that all people from Burgos should have home gardens in Siargao. They were able to do it. So that's easy. Government agencies can easily be, we can discuss this, have your programs aligned with what's happening now, because we're canceling a lot of things. Canceling, even in fact, buying my lipstick. I'm not buying anymore. Yung parang, I told the Father Pablo, where I'm staying now, in the Carpi House, Father, we will have our 1-hour Earth hour kagabi, from 8:30 to 9:30. And I'm not using your aircon. I'm using an electric fan. See, things like this, small things we can add to what we can, save on. So this discussion, I love it. Thank you very much, Mario, for this invitation. Na-hijack lang po ako kahapon to be part of this discussion. But we should continue discussing this. And I'm hoping you would discuss, you could have your audience, lalo na yung mga affected talaga. Let's see what they will say, like the vendors, like you said the motorcycle drivers, the transport. Pakinggan natin sila. Ano yung hinaing nila? Kasi kung tayo-tayo lang din na mag-uusap, we know what to do, right? Pero sila hindi nila alam ang gagawin nila. So doon ho ako nagre-react sa dalawang diskusyon natin dito of Emil and I'm glad Ken is coming out with, in the traffic management, how we can, yung ating sobrang traffic, sana you can be a consultant with, of General Torre.
We're working together.
Are you? Are you? Okay, good. Sige, because one of his projects that he wants me to help him is Balik Probinsya. How do we send back the Bicolanos to to the Bicol region who are in Manila? But the thing is, somebody said, wait, are there opportunities in Bicol region? Are there also opportunities in Metro Manila? And we have a lot of these people who are just, saying, we hardly eat. We don't have so much opportunities. So what do you think is better? They go back to the provinces? So I'm doing a research right now of what skills can be done by TESDA or the academe for them to, because we have to give them glimmer of hope and more love to these people. So with that, thank you very much.
So, narinig na po natin yung isa nga na hijack namin para makumpleto yung tatlo rito. So, alam nyo, ang commonality po nitong tatlong speakers natin, makikita ninyo. Number one, they have a common vision. Number two, nakaka-inspire yung passion. The way they talk about yung pinapakita nila, what they're doing. Pero ang mas importante po sa atin is the commitment. Ang commitment po nila, hindi lang natin nakita sa mga sinabi nila. Pero mas importante, yung track record nitong tatlo. They have been doing what they are saying now. Iba ho yung ginawa mo na, iba yung ginagawa mo pa, at sinasabi mo ngayon na gagawin pa natin. So, if there's one thing na ginagawa natin ngayon na gusto namin sanang maabot, is the framing of the problem, right? Ang laki ng problema, daming problema, nanganganak ang problema. But if you're able to frame the problem right, you will be able to arrive at the right question. Sa AIM ho, hindi kami tinuturan. By the way, nandiyan na yung presidente ng AIM alumni namin, si Roden, over there. Hindi ko kami tinuturuan sa case, kasi case method ang AIM. By the way, si Kuwan din po, nandiyan din po si Rudy, another AIM alumni yan. From the United Nations and ILO, International Labor Organization. It is to ask the right questions. Ang case method is not to get and to know the right answer. Because if you know the right questions, kanya-kanya ho tayo, iba-iba yung solution natin, iba-iba yung answer. That's what we're trying to do here. Kaya, meron pang-apat rito para makumpleto itong grupo. And that is the vision of our President, Dr. Mario. Kasi ang sabi namin sa AIM, you should put your mouth where your pocket is. And put your pocket where your mouth is. Pag hindi ho natin nilagyan ng gasolina yung sasakyan, hindi ho yung tatakbo. Kaya naman nandito si Cora. We are now talking about 50 hectares, so on and so forth project, but we will start small. Pero ang kailangan, susundin po natin bago kami mag-open forum, sabi ho, if we tell you, you will hear. If we show you, you will see. But unless you experience, you will never learn. Para ho yung mga sinabi ni Ken, maging makatotohanan at ma-realize natin, kailangan we create magic. Tingnan nyo yung inimbita namin. Nandito yung government, nandito yung industry, at nandito po yung academy. Kaya What is magic? Mobilizing academe, government, in industry collaboration. Magic. Unless we work together, tonto ako nung pinakita ni Ken making together work. I think that is the key word there. If we will work together after this, gagawa na ho talaga tayo ng mga action agenda, and palagay ko hindi ho tayo iwanan ni Ken, ni Cora, at ni Ernie. Para ho, pagkatapos ng talk, susunod naman natin ho, action. So on that note, may I call on my good friend, Di Uragon. Maglalagay ho pala kami ng, meron ho yung gagawin, Ken, immediately after. Kung yung Agraba naglalagay ng pantry, meron din ho yung ilalagay bago umuwi ng Manila. So, take it away, Ernie.
Wag dito. Ganito muna. Pag-usapan natin, you see, when you talk about crisis, there are always two sides, di ba? Even I think the Chinese character for crisis, yes. What does it say? Yes, of course. Opportunity. So, I'm always looking at the positive side of things. Sabi nga ni Ma'am Cora, yung gera na yan, wala naman tayong magagawa dyan. Hindi natin mapipigil yung mga hinayo. mga proponents na yan. Pero, may magagawa tayo na tayo mga apektado. Nakita nyo naman sa pinakita kanina, ang Pilipinas ang nangunguna sa mga naging naapektuhan nitong Ang tanong ko sa dalawa. Okay? Simple lang. Ano pong mga oportunidad ang nakikita ninyo na makakatulong sa ating bansa even on a small scale? Nabanggit mo na yung community or household garden, vegetable garden, etc. Maliban po doon, ano yung mga doable, maski mag-start na small na projects na pwedeng palakihin para makatulong sa mas maraming tao? Ikaw muna po.
Okay.
Beauty
Sige.
first before
Sige, gwapo. Actually, marami po kaming naiisip na gawin, especially with the MDMs. Yung Development Management alumni ng AIM, Asian Institute of Management. So we're having actually a conference so that we could call where are their projects. Actually, marami po nakalista on hand that we can be part of. One of this is actually, kagaya lang ng Sierra Madre. Okay, this is one of our projects. We're doing something about the Dumagats who were displaced. And these are the poor people, who never really had opportunities just like us. Education, livelihood, even housing. So I saw where they were placed. So ito po ay sa Real, Quezon. So that's just one. And then the other, of course, yung mga food pantries na pinag-uusapan. Oo, kailangan po, it's available everywhere. Itong kadiwa na ginagawa ng Department of Agriculture, maganda rin ho yan, kasi mababa ang presyo. Yun lang makakatulong na po tayo. Kasi yung mga sinabi ni Ken, ano ba yung dapat natin gawin? Maglakad na lang tayo, mag-bicycle tayo, etc. The thing is, I think it's very, very practical in terms of, ayun nga, unang-una, maganda sa health. Di ba? Oo. So, maraming magagawa. Just make sure training is also important. Kasi yung skills, di ba? Yung skills ng isang tao, kung ako po ay lagi na lang sa bahay, wala naman akong magagawang di ba? Anong gagawin ko? Anong skill ang pwede kong magawa? Di ba? Para maka-business kami kahit maliit lang. Kami ho sa Barangay Bel Air, tinuturuan na namin yung maliliit na bata, so we had kids entrepreneur. Ganon palang kaliit ang mga bata. Nagbe-bake sila, and then they sell to each other. Simple things like that. So, our barangay kapitana, dapat lahat ng barangay kapitans, kagaya ng aming kapitana sa Bel Air, ang dami ho. Kagaya ngayon, it's something like to do. What to do in a crisis like this. So tinuruan niya kami, anong gagawin namin. Preparedness especially, we are also expecting the big one in Metro Manila.
Also. Si Sir Ken naman, ano bang masabi mo po? After that, I'll get, anybody from the audience can join us in our conversation. Just raise your hand, I'll give you the floor. Yes.
Sige po. So maganda po sigurong tingnan yung siguro at the level of the city, what can we do, no, para mas practical. Yung una po, supportahan natin yung lahat ng sustainable mobility initiatives ng city. So transformation of our streets. I know there will be struggles, no, transition yan. Kasi magbabago, and when change happens, minsan may mga magrereklamo, pero with adequate social preparation and with us as a community pushing for these proper street transformations, replanting of the trees, improving and reducing the lane width for private vehicles, no, to make traffic calmer, slower, but safer for students. Yun po yung messaging po that we're trying to push. No? So yun po yung sa how might we build a city for people and nature and not just for private vehicle owners. Yung pangalawa po, very very important po, I think, to think harder about the effects of the oil crisis on education, health, and the nutrition of our kids. And I think we have to mobilize for our children. No, and did you know po that in fact even in Operation Timbang Plus, 10 percentage points underdeclared ang stunting ng kabuuang probinsya ng Camarines Sur. No, if you compare the official targeting mechanism of the National Nutrition Council, which is Operation Timbang Plus, yung pagpupunta sa mga bahay-bahay, no, versus the FNRI National Nutrition Survey. So, gusto sabihin, no, ang sa Naga, I think the stunting rate is something between 2 to 3%. No, pero it's highly probable that we are not seeing all the kids that need interventions. So if our targeting mechanism is wrong, it might give us a false sense of security na okay na tayo. No? And in fact, may improvements naman. Totoo naman yun. Pero para siyang yung learning outcomes po natin, di ba? Akala natin 99% na, 98% na yung literacy rate natin, but it was measuring the wrong thing. No? It was not measuring understanding of kids. Thankfully po, we can do more programs that can really focus on how, I think the youngest of us, the most vulnerable, are kids 5 and below, and even the first 1,000 days or the pregnant mothers are experiencing. Because any change in nutritional mix among pregnant women and also their children can lead to very permanent effects later on in life. So let's think about those a little bit more.
Dagdagan ko lang yung sinabi mong 2 to 3% stunting rate. Baka we have to revisit that because in the Philippines, when you talk about poverty incidence, number 4 ang Region 7. Region 5, meaning Bicol. So, usually stunting and poverty incidents related yan. So kung nandun tayo sa number 4, and ang average national average ng stunting is in the 20+%, baka yung 2% na ano lang yon, pang-forma lang. Okay, next. Yes, please. Lapit po, engineer. Yeah. Very good.
Ay, sorry. Sorry na ako magsasalita.
Sige
Dito na
po.
lang? Okay lang.
Pwede po at saka harap po sa mic.
Okay po.
Paki-identify lang po for
Yeah po.
purposes.
Nandun si camera.
Para malaman
Okay po. My name is Engineer Abby Hascho. I'm actually an agricultural and biosystem engineer. And I'm teaching and currently an assistant professor from Central Bicol State University of Agriculture, and also the vice chairperson of the Naga City People's Council for External Affairs. Ang aming internal ay si Sir Efren De Leon. Actually, with all the questions that they've given us during the presentations, I currently writing on my reactions on the different presentations and the questions. So one of the triggering questions that I've read is about the opportunities of this crisis. As an agricultural and biosystem engineer, we are focusing not only on food, but also on the just transition for renewable energy. So currently, the CBSUA, together with the CHED and the DOLE, is having now an ongoing project on developing an agrivoltaic system. So this is actually a solar panel harvesting energy, and at the same time, under the solar panel, we have different plants. So we generate a clean energy and at the same time food for that. So with the current scenario that we have right now, I've been pondering with the same philosophy that I have way back ago, that actually the Philippines can be self-sufficient in terms of energy and food. So one of the slide of Sir Ernie is on the issues of the synthetic fertilizers that we are actually dependent on other countries. But to tell you honestly, the Philippines and other academies are actually having their own fertilizers. We can produce our own fertilizers without relying on the urea coming from other countries. Because in 1990s, early 1990s, there are scientists and discoveries that the nitrogen fixing plant can actually absorb the 78% nitrogen and can be converted into usable nitrogen that can be absorbed by our plant. So parang these opportunities, or this crisis actually says that we can explore those opportunities na currently meron na si Philippines. Meron na tayo, pero because of ang dami nating gustong gawin, connecting with the global community, natitaken for granted natin yung nandito na dati pa. So, remember when a Filipino invented a car powered by water? Di ba? So, actually, nakulong siya. Tapos, kasi, meron siyang inutangan na bangko, nag-bounce siyang mga checks niya, so na BP 22 siya, nakulong siya, and namatay siya sa kulungan. So that's the thing na meron tayo ngayon, na parang we can survive actually, we can be self-sufficient, considering we just have to still look for those talented persons and continue doing what we are now. And lastly, yung gusto kong i-message today is about my advocacy on protecting the environment, that currently, itong crisis na to, this actually trims down to what the people are doing on contributing to the greenhouse gases. So parang nagkaroon tayo ng opportunity to rethink ulit na actually we can do clean energy and we can produce our own food without using those synthetic fertilizers and pesticides. Thank you po.
Tama po yan. Yung upside nito, hindi na masyadong gagamit ng fossil fuel, it will reduce yung GHGs. Sige. Sino pa po?
Can I just speak here?
Sige po, pwede po.
Good afternoon, everyone. I always, in the point of view of an academician, I always look at these particular happenings, nationally or globally, really as an opportunity.
Yes.
Number one, if we don't have this crisis, we will never be here. And this is the pivot, okay? Where the academe, as mentioned by Sir Dan, the academy, the government, in the industries, come together to really think creatively, critically, comprehensively for us to move into action. And I so admire this young boy in front who has that kind of mentality or mindset on mobility, on reducing use of this fuel, etc. Don't you know, in Biscas, upon my survey, we have more than motorbikes than vehicles, than the cars owned by the faculty and the employees. So I'm starting to think of coming up with some campus innovation, or rather encouraging our students to purchase, buy their own motorbikes, and reward those who will go to patronizing the bicycles. Our spaces, our parking spaces in Biscas, which is just 2.5 hectares campus area, is mostly occupied by these motorbikes owned by our students. Okay? And our students are usually sons and daughters of farmers, small businessmen. We are not a private school. These students are being subsidized by our government, perhaps the only SUC in Naga City. But we are catering to students from Calabanga, Milaor, as far as Minalabak, Libmanan, etc., etc. And they can still afford to have that because sometimes it is mindset. If you are in Naga City, dapat ang dating mo, bunga-bunga. Meron kang motorbike. Which is supposed to be not to be the mindset of our young generation. Okay? And therefore, it will take certain level of understanding and majority and perhaps policy in the part of the government and our local government to really rethink and reward our young students, okay, who will have that kind of advocacy on really, diba, the effect may not be immediately felt, but slowly or little by little, we can perhaps do something about it. And I am looking forward, because I was invited by Sir Dan in this particular undertaking, that Biscas will really take cognizance to this particular call. Because we are supposed to be an academic entity that should not develop students who will be job seekers, but job creators. And I think that is supposed to be the call of the time, because if our students will have that mindset, not as job seekers, but creators, then we might as well, this student, contribute to stabilizing our economic condition. So, I'm looking forward to that future partnership, forging of MOA, and the timelines of activities so that we can know our entry level as an academic institution.
Thank you for your show of commitment, Mr. President. May comment lang ako doon sa solar power ba ang dito? Na ER? Balita ko may mga politiko na mahangin dito. Why not wind energy ang
Actually, sir, meron sila sa
harness
Kamsur.
natin.
Yung CIP, di ba? The Copenhagen Infrastructure Project. That's windmill. Oo. Yes.
Ayun, yun.
Sa Calabanga.
Meron eh.
They have. So that will also help out in your energy. Oo.
So from academe to government, a response muna.
Sorry po, very quick response lang po to Biscast President. Thank you, sir. And in fact, Biscast is one of Naga City's biggest partners in terms of improving transport and mobility. In fact, the head of the Transport and Mobility Council is from Biscast, si Engineer Edmer. So we work with him a lot. And one of the things that I think employers, business, and government can do is to really incentivize, active transportation, walking and cycling. So, providing bike racks, GM Torre just opened bike parang shower facilities. Those are what we call end of trip facilities. Now, one of the reasons why mahirap magbike, mahirap mag-commute kasi parang pagpunta mo dun, hulas ka na. Parang pagod ka na, tumatagaktak na yung pawis mo. And so these facilities, end of trip facilities, are within the control of employers and schools and government offices. And in fact, they really help, no, and really encouraging having education and encouragement programs for your employees and students to push for this. No? Dati po, when we were working with Makati Business Club 2020 to 2022 on their Business for Biking program, baka po pwedeng may ganyan din yung chamber, yung Metro Naga Chamber or Kamsur Chamber that can really strengthen, no, especially at this time. And then altogether po, support the city naman in the engineering, meaning all the street transformations that I mentioned a while ago. So those are just some like really actionable things that make such a big impact to people who bike and walk in the city. Thank you po.
Ma'am Coratec,
Did you organize a movement or an organization in Vistas to support those advocacies? You just only mentioned one, and I have taken down the name to talk to him by tomorrow. I'm asking if you have organized certain group of students that we have here, there, especially engineers.
Engineer Neil Bartolome, who was your alumnus from last year, and is now a fellow with us po sa WeSolve and Safe and Sound Cities Naga. So may BISCAS students pa actually yung team niya. So, yun po sa BISCAS.
Okay, thank you. I-update ko lang, Ma'am Coratec. May bagong after VUCA, Bani. Bani, brittle, anxious, non-linear, incomprehensible. Yan po ang mas bagong ginagamit namin sa industry. Oo. Iyo, hindi na VUCA. Okay, ARD, Nepo.
Good afternoon. Thank you for inviting us here. When we received the invitation, I immediately accepted it because I want to hear from the speakers, and we want to know on the part of DOLE, what are the specifics that DOLE can come in? Are there gaps, and what are interventions that are needed? But first, Sir Ernie, aside from what you have presented, I do not know if it's true that there is a cable lying in the Strait of Hormuz, and I think there was an attempt to cut that one, and I think I'm also affected because my wife is in UAE, and my eldest in UAE, although it's 130 kilometers from Dubai.
It's in the opposite side.
It's in Al Ain.
Yeah.
I have texted them to go home, but they do not like because they feel that they are safe there, and it's not the Dubai is their place is not the target of a drone.
Yeah.
It's only in the center, I think, where a U.S. base or banks and the like.
Yes, yes.
Okay, but I'm affected because it may be a cause for non-communication. Okay, alam naman natin lahat na yung messenger, unlike before, when my wife is in Saudi Arabia, I sent a letter via postal. It would reach her after 1 month. And I would receive a response from her after another month. So we can only send and receive letters 6 times in a year. Okay. Now, insofar as DOLE is concerned, balita naman ninyo na ang prominent na program ng DOLE is TUPAD.
Tupad,
Okay, that is for emergency employment. But hindi ito yung dating TUPAD na dati na nakikita sa kalsada. We transform it. We tie up with other government agencies like DOH. Yung DOS, para napansin kasi namin, may mga gulong nando sa bubong. So naiipon yung tubig, we partner them, butasan yun para hindi mag-ipon ng tubig. At yung walisan, yung stagnant water. We also tie up with tourism. inorganize namin yung mga tao doon para yung mga local tourists hindi naman mahirapan. I mean, hindi naman matakot. Kasi kung organized, naka-uniform yan, it would promote tourism. Marami po yan ang tie-up namin. Then, DOLE is ready. Kung ano man ang contingency, in fact, we received a communication yesterday that the representative of DOLE had just attended a meeting with the representative of the Office of the President. They will come out with a new guidelines that would help first the drivers, the bus drivers, the water transport, and the like. But we are expecting that these new guidelines will come out tomorrow. And we will have a meeting by Tuesday or Wednesday so that we know what kind of form and shape the DOLE assistant would be. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. I think we should hope that it should not always be in the form of dole-outs. The response to this should be something that should empower people, to really be resilient while maintaining their dignity. Kasi pag dole-out, parang, mendicancy, it borders on mendicancy.
DOLE would not give fish. I think
Yes.
we train them how to fish.
Very good. Very good.
Thank you, po.
Yes. From the Dole pa rin.
Okay, supportan ko lang yung sinabi ni ARD, that we have also livelihood program wherein we are prioritizing yung sustainable livelihood. Same with the emergency employment program or TUPAD na na-mention ni ARD. Like yung sa turismo, wherein kanina iniisip ko na how to connect with those plans na gagawin natin after. So, we expect po our support and attendance to the meetings, for the next meetings. Okay, para
Very good.
makakamap tayo ng
Very
yung
good.
participation po ng DOLE. Okay,
Glad
thank
to
you.
hear the commitment from the academe and the government. After you po, si Mr. Dan. Ikaw muna po. From UNEP.
Okay, yes. Good afternoon. I'm Attorney Pichi Moraleda from the University of Northeastern Philippines. Actually, I would like to answer the questions, pero it might go on too long. So, dain na lang. But anyway, suffice it to say that as a backgrounder, the education institutions have been in this place before. I mean, if you remember, we had COVID. So somehow, we have already developed the tools to cope up with such disruptions. So, generally, we have developed skills in crisis management and the values in crisis management that I think would make us cope with this problem. No? But as I've said, this is a different elephant altogether. I mean, if during COVID, we couldn't go out because we were forced not to go out. Now we cannot go out by our own circumstance, no? A few weeks ago, I think just last week, I was just thinking about what to do. I was doing an outline of what memos I'd have to do for the school, so that we can cope. I could help my employees. We could help the parents, the students. My executive assistant texted me that Iriga City increased the tricycle fare tariffs. So, sabi niya sa akin, attorney, yung dati kong 40 pesos na pamasahe per day, 90 pesos na. Baka kulang na po yung, yung daily. So, syempre naman, as being, one of the decision makers, you cannot decide immediately na mag-i-increase ka ng salaries. I mean, that's, di ba? So you have to think of ways. So what are of course, the immediate reaction is the 4-day work week. But this 4-day work week that we are going to do, hindi pa namin ini-implement. So, but maybe after Holy Week, we would be able to come up with a scheme. It's really not, parang unlike the government, parang Friday, walang pasok lahat. May pasok pa rin Monday to Friday, pero yung office, halimbawa, if there are 5 people in the office, maybe 2 of them will be absent on a Wednesday and another 2. So it's like a skeletal thing that we already did in COVID anyway, so we're not new from that. Another thing that is being done by schools, actually matagal na since COVID, and I think UST, I just learned that UST is 70% online. Yeah, 70% online. So yung kaya pala yung mga anak ng mga friends ko, nandito sa Bicol yung mga anak kasi nanonood ay nag-online lang sila. They just go to UST for laboratory exams and stuff like that. You know, so anyway, going online. All right, I'll have a reaction. I'll have a further reaction on that. So we go online, 4-day work week. Of course, we also have a scheme we're thinking of a scheme where we could provide, kasi umaalis nga tayo dun sa dole out, we could provide basic commodities on salary deduction. Like provide 1 sack of rice for maybe a spread of 4 gives. Itong yung it's not, and at the time na mura pa yung mga bigas. Para meron silang bigas pag tumaas na yung bigas. Okay. Some schools, we have not done it yet, but some schools, I know of a school in Sipoco to have done it. I think Sigera is doing it, Sigera Institute, where they provide vehicles on a point-to-point basis for their students on a cheaper pamasahe, cheaper fare. No? So that's also a good thing. No? Subsidized ng school. No? Pero sa tingin ko, yung mga ganon, sa totoo lang, if you look at it on a bird's eye view, in a small city like Iriga, if I declare, for example, 50% online, magsasuffer ang tricycle. Magsasuffer si van. Magsasuffer. So, medyo, alam mo yon, yung, if you move this, something else will suffer. Yun ang medyo mahirap for someone who's like us, who is on the top, who is also thinking about it dahil si tricycle driver, estudyante niya din, yung anak niya, estudyante din namin. Diba? So anyway, those are things. I do appreciate this conversation, and I do appreciate that we could share like best practices and things that are doing by our industry and the academe. So another thing that I'd like to mention though is that I am reminded, are you from Kanaman? You're the son of Joel. Finally, I met you. Joel is a good friend, good family friend way back 2010. And then he would talk about Ken a lot. That he was in the DFA, and then nasa Harvard nga si Aki ko. So anyway, now I met you. Anyway, there was a barangay in Kanaman. It's an island barangay. You have to ride the bangka to get there. Ang galing ng barangay na to kasi pagdating ko doon, they have a beautification program, but their plants are not mga flowering plants, vegetables. I was walking through may mga talong, may mga kangkong, sabi ko, kesa ngaya, attorney, magtanom ngayon ng mga man ngayang datang at least you know, the people can get something, they get value from it, no? So that was always on my mind. So that is why, at least in our school in Goa, we had an effort to really plant trees that are fruit-bearing trees. We planted cacao. We planted trees that would give value for our employees. So I think that is also what we are doing. Aside from all-encompassing, syempre magko-conserve ka. No? Yun ang unang-unang gagawin ng school. No? Conserve, energy, we do the Earth Hour. Our Earth Hour is every day from, of course, 12 o'clock to 1 o'clock. Ngayon, there's a move na gawin ng 12, gawin na natin turning 11 to parang 2 o'clock or something, or 11 to 1. Because yesterday we had a meeting, and this is precisely what we all discussed. No, what are we going to do as a response? And I think I'd like the body to know that the academy is doing also our part, no? Especially now that we also have our research and extension function, and I think we have to improve on it to really answer, things like going to alternative modes of transportation, mainstreaming it, no? Dahil talagang hindi na po nakakatuwa yung effect ng fuel prices, no? In fact, my husband and I are in conversation. Ang conversation namin ngayon, anong EV ang bibilhin? Do we buy a hybrid or do we buy a full EV? So anyway, sabi ko full EV kasi problema mo nga yung gas, paano walang gas? Hindi din maano. So, we want a plug-in EV. So that's, but then, sobra na daw ang pila kung gusto mong bumili ng BYD o ng Toyota or anything. So, it's a little bit too late, but not too late for those who wants to go into EV. I was also told that government has already purchased electric vehicles. I was told that Cam Norte DPWH, lumating na yung mga BYD nila. So government is also doing that. So I'm very thankful for this conversation and for being part of the conversation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Caution lang po sa academe. We had already experienced this, sabi mo nga. And you know what? After a while, ang prognosis is tumaas yung learning poverty. So, let's just take lessons from the past. What we did wrong, let's do it right this time. Di ba? Mahirap yung we never learn. Nasa academe pa naman. Attorney Dan, and then industry, kasi government, academe, industry naman.
Yeah, I would just like to ground the questions and the reactions of those people
Yep.
responding.
Yeah.
Number one, yung kaibigan ko.
Naka-off yan.
Hello, meron na?
Okay na, you're okay.
So, unang-una, we have 3 presidents of colleges and universities here. Unang-una, the only university, the 2 universities in Rinconada, pero the only university president present here today. And she is also our president ng Bicol Association of Private Colleges and Universities. So when she speaks, hindi lang po yung UNEP ang sinasabi niya, but all private HEIs in Bicol. Para alam nung tao sino yung mga nagsasalita. Okay, that's one. Number 2, I want to speak also for Dole. After the pandemic, dapa yung negosyo sa Naga. Isa lang ho ang lumapit sa Chamber of Commerce na government agency, and that was Dole. Stimulus fund ng Dole, we were able to get 13 million. Yung mga hardly hit na micro enterprises, pinili po ng chamber, tinuruan ng chamber paano gumawa ng proposal, and most of them were approved. Kaya we are now very proud to say to our Assistant Regional Director and our Provincial Director na yung po mga tinulungan ninyo ay buhay na buhay ngayon at siguro more resilient lumaban dito sa oil crisis.
Very good.
So thank you sa Dole. Yan
Very
po ang
good.
ikalawa. Pangatlo, paalis
Ilan
na rin po yung...
Ilan itong listahan mo? Tuloy mo lang.
Paalis na rin po yung president namin sa discuss. Alam niyo, binigyan ho kami ng 2 years. I sit in the board of trustees of Discuss together with Mayor Lenny Robredo. And we committed that by next year, Discuss will be another university in Naga. Kaya ayan po yung nangunguna sa amin.
Very good.
And Bakit I want to ground the discussion now? Yun nung sinabi niya kanina, it was a challenge to us here. Because he wants now for Viscas to be partner of this campaign. Kaya, Dr. Charlie, we accept your challenge.
Very good.
And the first board meeting, I will be the proponent of that MOA between this group and Viscas.
I'm the first one to accept the message request.
Yeah. So thank you very much, Dr. Charlie, our next university president. Okay.
Thank
Yun
you.
naman pong katabi ni Dr. Charlie is our vice chairman for external affairs. And she is a member of my advocacy committee ng Naga City People's Council, where I also serve as the vice chairman for management. Internal. So, ganun din po siya. Ang dami niyang projects. Ang gaganda ng projects niya, yun lang hindi nagte-take off because kulang ho ng support ng private sector. And Abe, you will be very happy na yung dala-dalang project ni Madam Coratec directly responds to your request na matulungan ka doon sa mga projects niya.
Very good.
Para very providential to, Ernie.
Iyo.
Yung mga sinasabi namin ritong wala kami, yung pala nasa 3 lang ninyo ang magpo-provide. Tulad ng mga advocacy mo, we are members of the 3-man advocacy committee of the People's Council. Sisiguruhin namin, lalabas po kami ng mga advocacy position papers. Kaya pasensya na, Kat, saka Ernie, I want those people invited here to be known by everybody, and I want to join the commitment level nung mga nagsasalita at nung mga speakers. Thank you very much.
Mag-network tayo over coffee maya-maya. Industry, pero before that, let me say something. Yes. As we speak, marami sa ibang representatives ng industriya nagsasabi, there still exists this long-standing problem about jobs, skills, mismatch. So dapat academe, industry, talagang hindi lang yung linkage, kundi I don't know what you call marriage kung kinakailangan. Partnership, di ba? Okay. Partnership para walang walang kasalan. Okay, so pwede po bang marinig ang boses kang industriya? Sige po.
So, good afternoon, everyone. I am Maria Eusebia Gaite Quiñones, or Buttes, or Ibiang. I represent Camarines Sur Chamber of Commerce, and I am also from the academy because I also own a school. So, Pichi and I, we are friends. Magkasama kami dyan. So anyway, what caught my attention, and then I will be recommending this to the Camarines Sur Chamber of Commerce, yung bike for business. You know, because the Camarines Sur Chamber of Commerce sponsors every year the Business Expo. Under the Business Expo, we have different topics discussed. We have one in agriculture, then we also have the Regional Youth Entrepreneurship Congress. Ano yan? Meron pa, ilan yan eh? Meron pa kami yung Food and Beverage Congress. So, under the RYEC, or the Regional Youth Entrepreneurship Congress, I will be recommending the business for bike, or bike for business. Yeah. Kasi napansin ko yan eh. Even in our school, a lot of our students are using motorbikes. And then, meron pa nga dyan, mga walang lisensya. Inaalaw ng mga parents, yan ang nagiging problems namin. And marami ang naaaksidente. Versus if they will be using bike, hindi nagagamit ng fuel. Ang accident will be lesser kasi hindi masyadong mabilis compared with motorbikes. So yun, i-recommend ko yun. And then under food and beverage, hindi lang, yung buong Business Expo, I will be recommending that this year, ang focus is on this project, this global global problem that we are
Yes.
undergoing now,
Yes.
na kailangan yung mga topics nila will focus on that.
Yes, yes.
Sa agriculture, sa food and beverage, and so on and so forth.
Very
Yun po.
good.
Thank you so
Yung,
much.
yung project nyo po, ayusin nyo kasi pwede mong i-present yan doon sa MOCA Awards.
Yeah, oo.
Meron
Yes.
tayong judge dito ng MOCA Award.
And winner palagi dyan ang Council Chamber
Yeah.
for Southern Luzon. Okay po.
Speaking about MOCA
Yes.
Awards, for the first time, ang nanalo last year na chamber sa national level, hindi taga Manila. Metro Naga.
Oh, congratulations.
Tapos, ano na sila, Hall of Famer.
Yeah,
diba? Yan. So, yun.
Okay, sige po.
Salamat
Thank you,
po.
thank you.
Magkita tayo sa MOCA Award. Next po, next. Next. Last na po. Akala ko ikaw ang last. Action plan. Okay.
I am Dr. Hina Valencia po, currently the president of the Association of TVET Institutions in Camarines Sur. TVET, yeah. And at the same time, part-time faculty of the Graduate School of the Naga College Foundation and a research consultant of the same school. Yeah, research. So, actually po, to summarize what we have discussed, and as I was actually listening to the three po, there are three things and three aces that came up to my mind. The first one is awareness. So the first one is that we really have to help our young ones, young ones, and once young, that there are a lot of opportunities. Opportunities here in Naga City, in terms, or rather in other places pa din, in terms of green economy and at the same time, the blue economy. Let us not forget about the blue economy. And a lot of opportunities that can actually be given to them. We just have to make them aware of all these things available around them. And another thing is that we have to teach these people to account whatever they have started. Teach them with the thing accountability. Because if we would account them, it means that they are given, or they could be given that responsibility to do their, to do their task. And at the same time, whatever training that we could actually give to them, at least they could be able to make use of it, lessen this crisis. No? Di ba po, ang ganda ng maituturo natin sa mga, sa once young and the young ones, in order for them to really, practice that sense of responsibility, not only for themselves and for other people and environment as well. And then, of course, teach them also to, to appreciate whatever they could get. Appreciate, live within the means. Diba? Extravagance is actually part of what we could be able to achieve as, as part of our achievements. But we need to teach them how to appreciate what they have around them. Ako po as technology educator, meaning whatever I could see around, I never stop with my curiosity thing. Curious ako kung ano bang pwedeng gawin doon sa damoy na yun? Ano bang pwedeng gawin doon sa wild plant na yun? And right now, I am on study creating of something out of this wild plant, which is just available within that creek. Pero malinis na creek. And that is tagbak plant, wherein I am currently studying to help the government in terms of creating foods, yung food sustainability, na hindi alam na meron pala nun, and this is novel. I haven't seen yet. Ang alam nila, that is only panggamot, medicine, but never of the food. And I will be introducing din po sa disaster risk, because my targets are those places na prone doon sa disaster.
Okay.
So
Very
that's
good.
one thing po that I'd also like. 3 A's: awareness, accountability, and appreciation. Thank you.
Maganda, okay. Ako naman, dadagdagan ko lang yan kung pwede. Whatever na mga strategies na ma-form natin, gawin din natin ang tatlong A's. Una, adopt with an O. I-adopt natin yung strategies na yon. Pangalawang A, adapt. I-adapt natin to local conditions and environment. Until, paulit-ulit, because of repetition, sustainable implementation, we become adept at, solving or responding to any crisis that comes our way. Adopt, adapt, adapt. Yun yan. Ikaw na. Introduce mo.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, and thank you, everyone, for your participation. This was a very fruitful discussion. So we've placed you all in a group chat where everyone can network with each other and add each other on Facebook, and hopefully this is one of many more discussions to come. For our closing remarks, may I call on Sir Mario?
In closing na to. As I listen to all the presenters, thank you so much. Humaba bigla kaninang iksi nitong notes ko. Bigla pong humaba. So, to synthesize, no? How do we implement a multi-phased action plan to mitigate the economic and the currency risk caused by the Middle East conflict? Actually, nakafocus yung problema or the effect doon sa economic and the currency. Di ba? Doon nag-i-evolve yan eh. Right? Especially on the price of the oil, no? Rising oil prices more than $100 per barrel. And then the weakening of the peso, 61 na nga ngayon, ano? So that means prices would really be going up for all those importation that we're having, no, aside from the oil. And now, how do we manage inflation, right? So sa government, of course, all we can do is really follow, see how our leaders will respond, and then support whatever is good for whatever are the government contingency measures that is now being initiated by our President and of course Congress. No? Medyo nag-aaway pa nga eh. For energy, security, and supply. No? Especially now, biglang nabanggit na yung fuel stockpile. Ramon Ang wants the government to rebuy the Petron, etc. No? And so forth. So sometimes you don't know, ano na ba, mga, ano nito, puro hindsight, di ba? And then once the crisis is over, then we're back to where we were talking about, again, the possibility of future problems. In fact, I saw one video post that Mayor Lenny, our former Vice President, already warned us about coming up with a stockpile of oil, our own sufficiency for our own supply, and so forth, di ba? So sana maging presidente. So that she even mentioned about alternative fuel use na na-mention din ng ating NCPC, no, ni Abi. And energy conservation. So ang dami na naman, labasan na naman ito, no? Pero what can the business do? Yung may influence tayo. Sa business, of course, kailangan makita natin ng MSMEs eh. Right? They're the backbone. 85-90% of the businesses should survive. Kasi hindi naman magtatagal to. Matter of months. Di ba? Things we will normalize. So I think we should now be preparing for the next round. Di ba? Right? So, ano ito? Supply chain diversification. Lagi na lang theoretical eh. Diba? Kailangan well-defined ang supply chain. Lalo na sa agriculture natin. How are we going to maximize the profit, the revenue of our farmers? And then, of course, logistics optimization. Andito yung innovation and the technology. Ang dami ng apps that even our students are now producing a lot of applications such that logistics can really be optimized. No? And then, definitely, ang MSMEs would be affected financially so that there is a need now again for financial assistance. Di ba? Dapat noon pa to, may plano na and should be in place. Yung mga development banks should be able to provide short-term working capital with simplified terms. Ang hirap kasi rito, parang sanlaan ng mga pangungutangan mo. Pati apo-apo mo, kailangan nakasanla. Di ba? Simplified terms to help manage increased costs. Right? Gusto natin mag-survive. So, lagi na lang istorya natin sa datos are the number of businesses that fails. Since I was in college, lagi na lang nababanggit na to go into business, for you to survive, you should be part of the 4 to 6% within 4 years for you to survive. Otherwise, 94% of businesses would fail within 4 years. Hanggang ngayon, yung pa rin. Di ba? So how can we improve this kind of success rate for our MSMEs? Ang nagsusurvive yung mga malalaking business and I've been part of them for a long while, no? Sa Ayala Corporation, I've been with the Salim Group and also the Pacific ni Boss Manny Pangilinan. So, my challenge to us is we've gotten a scenario, so let's now have a scenario planning of different possibilities. And then, how do we make sure that we will have operational efficiency? And of course, sa ngayon, let's conserve on our energy or energy efficiency. Buti na lang kami sa NCF, magyayabang naman akong konti, as early as 10 years ago, nag-solar na kami. All of our roof are solar powered. Okay? So, and of course, again, yung sinasabi ni Pres Pichi, work from home can be considered. Kaya lang, tama yung sinabi niya na paano may impact ng mga umaasa doon sa mga estudyante na sasakay sana ng padyak, no? Yung mga maliliit na tindahan na where they spend their baon and so forth. So, balancing act talaga yun Di ba? That should really be considered. Na konsensya tuloy ako kasi last week pa, nag-pull online kami. Kaya pala yung haba ng pila, at saka nakasimangot lahat yung mga trike driver sa harap ng NCF, nawala yung mga kliyente. No? So, to my colleagues in the education industry, let's do our best for education must continue, just like what happened during the pandemic. Because that's the future, that's our recovery. If education continues, di ba, the future will be secured. Kasi, pero if we stop education, then we're stopping our future, no? The success rate of our future. Wala pataob na ang ating future if that happens. Even if it means, papasukin natin mga estudyante, even if it means, ito sigurado, si Atty. Pichi will agree, even if it means an increase in student account receivables. Yes. So, we have to get the brunt as long as we are now making our share for the future. No? So, let us protect our future. The future of what we are discussing will happen will happen or not happen depending on what we teach our students or depending on what we will do after this forum. And of course, bago tayo makatulong sa iba, self-preservation muna, di ba? Lahat naman tayo, we have to think first about ourselves, our family. So, sabi nga ni Sir Dan, and this mentor ko yan, lagi niya sinasabi sa akin, let's always prepare for the worst. Di ba? The worst may not happen, but at least we are ready if the worst will happen. Ito ang kanyang advice. Plant what you eat and eat what you plant. Ayan, ang dami ng discussions kanina. And all of us should really take a look at the project ng NCPC, ng DA, and all other foundations that are now into planting. Di ba? So, of course, conserve din ang water para and then of course yung cooking, transport. Yan, guilty rin ako rito. I have 17 cars. Sigurado naman, pag binenta ko to ngayon, walang bibili.
Yes, exactly.
Yung sa bicycle, ang ganda talaga. When we celebrated our 50th year sa Naga College, we raffled 100 bicycles. No? And then, just a few years, iilan na lang yung pumaparada dun sa bike storage ng NCF. And when I asked, tanggap namin ang daming likramo na nakaka-aksidente, nakaka-mainit, maulan, and so forth. So I think still the best solution is safety on the road, and we will be supporting this. So solar on our roofs, no plastic policy, and definitely yung community movement, just like what our mayor and former vice president keep professing for us to follow, di ba? So with that, we will create a group chat for all the attendees, and everyone is free to suggest something, and we will schedule again whenever it's the right time to react on whatever is happening, and we will reschedule it. Okay na ba itong lugar na to? Is this okay? And we do it on a Sunday para maraming parking kasi ang hirap ng parking dito on an ordinary day. So with that, I would like to thank our panel and our moderator, Sister Ernie. Thank you so much, and we hope that we can contribute in our own little way for us to survive this crisis again. Thank you and good afternoon. Mag-ingat po sa pag-uwi.